Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Board of NHS England. We're meeting here this morning in London, and I'm particularly pleased to be able to welcome a number of members of the public who've joined us for this meeting. You are joined, of course, by those who are able to observe the meetings by the live webcast that we have introduced as a major way of doing business in NHS England. We're very clear that we're taking decisions at these meetings that affect the health of the population of England, and we have a heavy responsibility to ensure that the rationale for those decisions and our ways of working are available and viewable by those who wish to see these decisions being taken. I stress that this is a meeting which we conduct in public, and our exchanges are in the public domain. It's not a public meeting in the sense that it's not a meeting in which we are inviting interventions from members of the public, and I stress that's an important constraint upon the way in which we work, because we engage in many other ways with public opinion and with patients, and a number of those operations will be discussed around the board table this morning. I should stress also that this is not the only way in which the board works. We, at almost every board meeting, will spend some time the day before in what we call a development session, in which we argue through some of the big strategic issues affecting the NHS at a time where they're in an early stage of gestation, so that by the time they've been worked through by the executive team and brought back formally to the meeting of the board, the whole of the board has been involved with them. And yesterday, for example, we spent some time on a stock take of our first year of progress. This is our first meeting of our second year as a fully operational NHS England board. And we also spent some time thinking about the future strategy for the board, and this will become crystallized as we go through the coming year. At the end of the meeting this morning, we will go into a private session of the board to consider some material which is commercially confidential and which it would be detrimental to the taxpayer interest for us to have discussions of in public, because it would confer potentially commercial advantage on those with whom we are dealing in relation to a sensitive issue. There is no fire alarm planned in the building this morning, so could I just stress that if one does occur, then we'll have our staff ensure that we make an orderly exit from the building. I'm now going to open the meeting formally. I report apologies for absence from Sir Bruce Keogh, who is abroad, and I welcome particularly this morning two new members of the board, Simon Stevens, who has joined us as our new Chief Executive and who will be in a moment presenting his first report to the board, and Karen Wheeler, who has joined us on secondment from the Department of Health and is our new Director of Transformation and Corporate Operations. So please, our very warmest welcome to both of you, and we're looking forward enormously to the leadership that you will bring to the board and to all of our work. We also have this morning with us Sir Cyril Chandler, who will join the table when he delivers the report of the Quality and Clinical Risk Committee. I should also mention that we are in the process at the moment of recruiting three new potentially non-executive members to the board. Members will recall that we lost the services at the end of last year of Naguib Kiraj, and we're trying to find an appropriate candidate who will bring a similar set of skills and expertise to the benefit of the board. We are in the final processes of having shortlisted candidates. There will be interviews towards the end of this month, and I hope that the Secretary of State will shortly thereafter be in a position to make formal appointments. And that will bring the complement of non-executive membership of the board up to 9, as opposed to the present 6. And alongside the non-executive members, of course, sit the members of the executive team of NHS England. Let me then launch the business by first of all inviting any declarations of interest in any matters on the agenda, knowing of course that we have a register of interests in which the standing interests are declared, but may I invite any declaration of interest in particular items on the agenda? No? Thank you very much. Let me then take next the minutes of the last meeting. I've had no points raised to me, so I'm assuming that you're willing to accept those minutes as an accurate record of the proceedings. Thank you. Matters arising, I've had no indication of matters arising other than those already on the agenda. Can I just confirm that? Fine, thank you. So let me turn to the Chief Executive's report. Simon, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Malcolm, and it's a great pleasure to be here. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to the patients and the staff and the carers who've taken the time to meet with me around the country on the visits that I've been on over the last several weeks, giving me a chance to share their views and hear about their experiences. And it reminded me that we've got a lot to be proud of as a nation about the National Health Service, as well as a recognition that there are some big challenges in front of us and we've got a lot of work to do. So in my Chief Executive's report this morning, I've picked out some of the items where we are focused over the next several weeks and months. And I'm just going to, Malcolm, pick out a few of those, and we'll ask one or two colleagues to come in on some of those specific points. In terms of commissioning performance, I think we know that one of the big gains of the last decade or so has been the fact that the NHS has made it much quicker and safer for people who need routine surgery to have their operations. And you think back 10 years, people were routinely waiting a year and a half for an operation, and now the vast majority of people are being seen not in 18 months but in 18 weeks from the point of referral to treatment. Equally, we know that there are substantial pressures around that, and it's very important, I think, that as CCGs and hospitals and other providers refine their plans now for 14-15, we use the next several weeks to ensure that there is appropriate focus on maintaining that position through the year, recognising that that's going to require some renewed focus over the next several months to get us in the spring and the summer to where we want to be. So the waiting times performance is an area where I know CCGs alongside NHS England in respect of specialised services are going to be wanting to put a particular focus. That would be one thing. Second thing I would comment on would be the Better Care Fund, and this obviously is an opportunity to kickstart a new set of conversations in out-of-hospital care where there is wide agreement that more concerted action can be taken at the health and social care interface. And the Better Care Fund is, together with various other programmes, including the new proactive primary care, the new GMS contract, part of the effort to do that. But to the extent that the 1.9 billion that is going to be invested in the Better Care Fund incrementally next year does not offset activity elsewhere in the NHS, then that is going to be a part of the healthcare system that's going to be under pressure next year. It will still represent, in all likelihood, a good use of public money, but those two thoughts are not inconsistent with each other. So the good news is we've still got 11 months or so to get the planning on this right. This is being looked at well in advance, and the early look at the detailed local plans, Malcolm, shows that there is still quite a bit of work needed, frankly, to get the rigour in terms of quantifying the use of the resources and the impact that is going to be had. So I think what we're going to be working with CCGs and with health and wellbeing boards, with local government partners on over the next several weeks are four things. Firstly, making sure that we are really rigorously kicking the tyres and quantifying the impact that is expected to occur on emergency admissions. Not that those will be the only benefits that will flow from this, but understanding in practice what that's likely to be and getting some of the measurement systems in place to do that. Secondly, we want to ensure that acute hospitals are fully engaged in that conversation locally. Thirdly, we want to ensure that there is proper financial risk sharing between the Better Care Fund and the expected downstream impacts that are occurring. And fourthly, I'm going to be asking CCG accountable officers to provide an attestation in due course that the Better Care Fund investments represent an appropriate use of public money, which I'm sure they will. So I'm looking for the NHS to play a full and constructive part in this conversation, not to be commenting from the sidelines, but equally I want to have a very frank conversation locally about what will and won't be achieved and how that's going to be done, so that we're having that conversation now rather than chickens coming home to roost in January, February, March, if that doesn't occur. So that's the Better Care Fund. On CCG co-commissioning of primary care, I think this has been well covered. The thought that Ros and others with the CCGs had been thinking about for some time now, and the Commissioning Assembly and the CCG, the Clinical Commissioners Group, making the point to us that there's great value in finding ways of a unified population-based approach to the judgments that are made about primary care spending, mental health spending, as well as the local hospital spending and the specialised commissioning spending. This is one way of helping respond to that, recognising that CCGs are in different places, and so we want to hear their ideas in a permissive way, while having a very clear duty to ensure that there are full safeguards around conflicts of interest. And we, as an executive, will not be recommending to the board of NHS England sign off of any form of co-commissioning unless we can all be confident that that test has been met. I say in my note, elaborate a little on the comments that I made to the Health Select Committee about the importance of the NHS establishing a forward view as to what the next 5 years might look like and what are the next steps we need to take on the back of the call to action that NHS England launched last year. And I will aim to say more about that in my speech to the NHS Confederation in early June. In terms of NHS England as an organisation, I think there's widespread recognition based on the response from the stakeholder survey, the conversations with CCGs, what our own staff say, that actually it has been a huge success in its first year of operation to be able to make the transition from the many constituent organisations that came together to form NHS England. Huge amount of work, a lot of progress made in the first year. And I can say that, even if you can't, as somebody coming in and looking at it and seeing it and being very impressed by so much of what has been done. Equally, I think there is a recognition that this is a great moment to take a breath and look at how we now move to the next phase of the work that we want to do. And so in terms of our own organisation, I think what we're doing really is three things. One, we are making sure that we've got really tight focus on the things that a commissioning body, NHS England, through the mandate, is here to deliver. Two, ensuring that in terms of our internal processes and directorate structures and relationships between the national and the local part of the NHS, we've got proper alignment. And then thirdly, making sure that we've got the right competences and capabilities specifically focused on the commissioning responsibilities we've got. So focus, alignment, competencies and capabilities, those are the three things that we are getting to grips with as part of this process. The specific take-home from that is that with Bill's departure, I will be proceeding to fill the role of Commissioning Strategy Director, and as we'll come on and talk about in the context of specialised commissioning, will also be filling a role of Director of Specialised Commissioning. So those are two of the immediate next steps, but there's a broader process of work underway that Karen and Ros are leading on behalf of the executive group around some of the other changes that we will make incrementally across the organisation. And then I think the last thing that I would say, just to underline in my report here, would focus on the great gains that there have been through the approach to transparency that this organisation has taken, and frankly, in its first year of operation, a huge departure from what went before, with many of the decisions that you've been taking, whether it be allocations or other approaches, made in public rather than as a government department, as it were. So that democratic accountability through the mandate, the publication of material. I think we're going to now build on that just with one further change, which is that we will start on a quarterly basis publishing information on the meetings that we as executive directors, I as chief executive, have with non-NHS bodies, in line with the approach taken by other parts of government departments. So I think when we do that, that will show that we are a listening organisation that makes no apology at all for being out and about talking to many different people, and that will be there for all to see.
Thank you very much. May I invite any questions or comments from members of the board? Moira.
Thanks, Martin. Thank you, Simon. Very helpful. But to link Better Care Fund and mental health services, are you anticipating that significant amounts of that, or not, that again the parity of esteem will be applying in the Better Care Fund? Perhaps that might be one way of asking it. And secondly, whether, given that parity of esteem is a powerful ambition, how does it work for children's mental health? I'll stop there.
Yes. So on the Better Care Fund, the opportunity is there for health and wellbeing boards to invest in support for carers, social care, primary care, mental health services, acute services where that makes sense. That is not something that we have prejudged. What we do want, however, is great clarity about what those investments are and what they're intended to do, and then some mechanism for ensuring that they do actually do that, or if they don't, and where risk arises, that is covered off through the fund. But more generally, I think there are a number of things that we are now doing to advance the parity of esteem agenda for mental health, and I would just reference a couple of them. One is that until this April, there was not parity of esteem in terms of the choices available to people being referred for elective mental health services. You had a legal right, if you were using physical health services, to make a choice of the provider that you were being referred to. You did not have that legal right if you were going to be receiving mental health services. Fortunately, that was changed from April, and we are about to go out to consultation, a 12-week consultation on what that will look like, how that will work. So that will be an important development, I hope. Secondly, we know that there are about 300,000 people across England with severe mental health problems who are dying up to 15 years younger than the rest of the population, partly as a result of physical health problems or mental health problems. So NHS England has just launched what is, in fact, I believe, Geraldine Strathdeer, National Director for Mental Health, would, I think, say, the world's biggest test of the idea that by changing the payment incentives, we can actually get people to improve the physical health of people with severe mental health problems. So our Sequin scheme, as it were, so-called, is going live, which will actually fund efforts to improve the physical health of many people with severe mental health problems, whose life expectancy on average is about the same as the population of England in the 1950s. So parity of esteem without tackling that is just hot air. So it will be very important that that makes significant progress. On children's and adolescent mental health services, the impression I have got from talking with mental health services around the country, and maybe Victor and others have seen this as well, is that they are under severe pressure. And I think this is an area we're going to have to take a very close look at. I don't know, Jane, whether you've been involved in that.
More recently, but absolutely right. The amount of pressure, particularly for CAM services, is significant at the moment. So it is a priority, I think, for us to address.
Yeah.
Thank you. Victor?
Can I just start there? First of all, welcome the report. I think there's a number of things in it that are kind of firsts, actually. First of all, I really welcome the attention you've paid to mental health, and in that regard, I chair the Parity of Esteem Board, and I'd certainly agree with the comments that you've just made. There is a strand of the work of the Parity of Esteem Board which refers specifically to children and young people. It's my view that we need a root and branch review of what CAMS is about. Frankly, my personal view is it's not fit for purpose. There needs to be a relationship between CAMS and primary care, and mental health and primary care, that makes sense. You didn't say anything about crisis response, and I agree with everything that you say. I would add that you don't have parity of steam unless you have parity of response when you're in crisis, and that's a priority for the work of the board. And you might want to comment further on that. My other comment was just, again, a very welcome response to your reference to the Roger Klein report and the Snowy White Peaks. And I note that it's really good to have a chief exec come into the NHS with a concern for equality as opposed to what usually happens. You reference a conversation with Leadership Academy, and I wouldn't mind you saying a bit more about that, because Roger Klein's report isn't actually just about race, it's about the impact of race on patient care and the leadership. So there's three things going on here. There's a race issue, yes, but actually that has an impact on patient care, and the Leadership Academy's role in ensuring that the leadership of the NHS understands that impact. I just wondered whether you would say more about that, and whether you are going to be saying more about it, because it's a big challenge for us.
Yes, I am. I mean, I must admit, I was very struck by Roger's report, which appeared to show that in terms of governance of trusts in London, and it's probably not unrepresentative, frankly, we've gone backwards. It's not even that we haven't made the progress we should have done. And I think it's pretty obvious that, I mean, we know this, the data all shows it, if the people running organisations are not connected to the communities they're serving, then that has a clear impact on the accessibility, on inequalities, and actually we see that some of the most dissatisfied people with our services are people from BME communities across London and other cities. And so I think of the visits that I've been doing in Birmingham, for example, recently, which actually links to your crisis point in mental health services. I mean, obviously a disproportionate use of some of those services because of inadequate access to upstream mental health and physical health services for some of those communities. So there's a huge agenda here. The NHS Equalities and Diversity Council, which I have inherited the chairing of, and I'm more than happy to do, I have asked them by the time of our next meeting, which is July 29th, to actually come back with a concrete set of actions that they think we should all be driving so that we can actually see some proper progress on this agenda.
Kieran.
Two things, I think. One is I completely agree with what you say about it. It's amazing we've got as far as we've got without a car crash or whatever the right analogy is.
Paraphrasing now.
I am. But it is, and there's been a huge amount of work. I think there's also more to go at. I think they're making it easy for staff to do their jobs. I think is important, and just making sure that we deliver on some of the contract, but doing things when we say we're going to do them for people. I think that's the one comment. Second one, though, is around this co-commissioning. Yes, there's a conflict of interest thing, and I'm sure we can sort that. But how does this sit with the role of a health and wellbeing board? Because actually, if we want to do population-based commissioning, we need social care in there. It's not just the NHS England mechanisms of CCGs and local area teams talking to each other. There's social care providers, there's local authorities, there's the voluntary sector, etc. Is there a risk that actually we're moving in the right direction, but only partially, and missing some of the bigger opportunities?
Well, I think there are sort of various points to make there. On the conflict of interest point, of course, health and wellbeing boards have providers represented as well, so they have exactly the same kinds of governance issues that they need to resolve, as does a CCG working with NHS England. But I think your underlying point is an important one, which is that health and wellbeing boards, in principle, offer the opportunity to take a broad look, not just at health spending, but social care spending. And the good news is that it appears that in many parts of the country, they are using the opportunity to pool more than the minimum required in the Better Care Fund. So people are actually getting very excited by the possibilities that this represents. That said, I think how the Better Care Fund specifically is planned and executed will be a real test of the robustness of health and wellbeing boards as a platform for this kind of approach. And so it will be very important that they work effectively in doing this if more is to be placed on them in future.
Thank you. Can I just then raise with you one of the issues that you've discussed in the report is that of transparency. And I think we all welcome very much the commitment to ensuring that meetings of the executive team with outside bodies are recorded and reported, I think commonly with other government bodies. But the issue alongside that, I think, is the question of expenses, which has been in the media recently. And I think the issue here, which troubles me a great deal, is to ensure that there's a proper understanding of the way in which NHS England works, and the responsibility of every member of the executive team not to sit in a central office and commute from home every day, but actually to be out and around the country, engaging with our patients, engaging with providers, with the CCGs, and in the case particularly of the medical director and the nursing director, with their own profession around the country. And I fully understand that this involves people being away from home night after night, being engaged in activities in every part of England, and that's actually a critical part of what we expect of them. What I don't want to occur is a sense that publicity about the sheer cost of doing this, the reasonable cost, conducted with appropriate thrift, should in any way inhibit people from doing their jobs properly. And I would like, Simon, if you could help us assure our teams across NHS England that this is still our expectation of how they would behave.
Exactly. I mean, one of the great things about this organisation is that in its first year of operation, it has actually been incredibly engaged out and about around the country with the communities we serve. And that's not my assessment, that's the assessment of the stakeholders, the national stakeholders who have been independently asked about this. We have the survey response, we're posting that on our website today. People can see what people are saying. They like the fact that we are transparent and out and about. So it is absolutely vital that we continue to do that, and to conflate issues around expenses with issues around the need for travel is a complete non sequitur, which we must ensure does not inhibit what we're doing.
Thank you. Are there any more issues or queries on Simon's report? No? Thank you very much.